It has been my hope and ambition that was able to share with you a little of the insights that goes with any kind of serious consideration of anger. I must apologize because, to be quite frank with you, we probably only cover maybe at best 15% of the material. I know that comes as a shock to you, but there's so much to say about anger and how it impacts across the entire spectrum of our being that you will understand it is impossible to confine it to 10 sections in a few hours. In fact, sometimes it takes years to fully understand this subject because it has so many subtle levels. Have you experienced that as you get into it, you keep finding layers and layers and layers of additional insights? So that's how it is. So today, what we'll try to do is kind of use this as an occasion to kind of summarize some of the things that we have talked about, and if there's anything that still remains a little unclear to you, we'll try to wrap that up as well. So let us open up our minds and begin to look and see what is it that you might need to go over again, and we'll do that. You remember we talked about a lot of stuff. We talked about one's natural orientation, how one processes reality. Remember we talked about those who are primarily thinkers, who process reality through their rational process, and how the opposite faculty in them, the faculty that feels, is usually undeveloped. We talked about people who process reality through their feeling, and how its opposite component, the rational faculty, is usually undeveloped. To give you some sense of how you orientate reality, we talked some about the objects of anger. We talked about the fact that it was very, very important that we first become aware of the anger, that we come out of this denial, that we start calling it what it is, not upset, not annoyance, not frustration, not irritated, anger. We discovered the danger of allowing these quote unquote innocent little feelings of annoyance accumulate over time and explode into an act of rage. Interesting, the person who was never angry, suddenly we read about them on TV killing 20 million people somewhere, but they never thought they had a problem with anger. It is because they had repressed it. Remember, we talked about suppressing. That's where you're aware and you feel the anger, but you hold it in so that you can continually comply with your ego mythology, this image that you have created of yourself that you wish to project to other people and all those other things, and you just suppress that anger and go through an act. We talked about the fact that when you repress it, it goes even deeper than that. You lose awareness of it. You're not even in contact with it. And that's the dangerous kind of stuff, because that's the stuff that just builds and builds and then finally explodes. We talked about the fact that once you're able to break out of this cocoon of denial and call the thing what it is, it's anger, that the next step you will have to be able to do would be to locate the object of your anger, right? Who or what are you angry at? And we talked about those 5 objects of anger. We talked about one of the objects of anger is the other person and how to go about dealing with that. We talked about techniques like forgiving, telling the truth, letting it go, etc., etc. You must have all made notes of that. Hopefully you've been practicing that, okay? More about practicing later. I cannot let you get out of this last workshop without reminding you about the function and the necessity of practicing. But certainly we talked about that object of anger in some detail. We talked about when you get angry at the other because the other's gotten angry at you. We talked about the second object of anger, which is others' anger at us. And when other people get angry at us, we get angry right back at them because that's all we know how to do. We kick into a defensive posture, and we begin to take their comments that they are making out of anger very personal, and that triggers our anger, and what happens is that we simply escalate the conflict on them. We talked again about anger at ourselves, how dangerous that is when we don't know how to manage the anger that we have at ourselves, or failing to live up to the goals and ambitions that we have set for ourselves, working out of our ego mythology, out of our assumption that we are perfect, flawless, no shortcoming, and therefore can leap over tall buildings in a single bounce, which none of us can do. Failing to do that, we very often become angry at ourselves, and we don't know how to process that anger. We don't know how to manage it. The net result is that we are hurled into a no-return state of depression. And all the Prozac and all the lithium in the world cannot rescue us. So we talked about that some. Well, we talked about anger at the absent of the people who are no longer part of our life. We all know that right now, this moment, we can think of at least 10 people that made us angry 30 years ago and get ourselves worked up into a fit of rage in here, right? So we have anger at people who are absent from our life, people who are no longer contemporary. But we have unresolved anger at them. And that also works as an undercurrent that runs through our life. So there's so many things that we looked at. We talked finally in the locating the objects of our anger that the fact is some of us just have abstract anger. We're angry at God, we're angry at our destinies, we're angry at our race, we're angry at our gender, we're angry at the fact we can't win the lottery numbers, we're angry about just fate in general. We're angry at God because if there's a God, then why did you allow my baby to get wiped out in a drive-by shooting? If there's a God, then why in the world you give me a husband like this? You know, so we have anger at many abstract things, and that of course we have to learn how to manage that. So we explored all of these topics, and the list goes on and on and on. So we talked about so many things. We finally wind up talking about anger within the context of our personal relationship, which is really where we experience most of our misery. I said earlier that whatever you want in life will come from the other. God has no way to give you anything except through another human being. When he wishes to give you the keys to spiritual knowledge, he will bring you in contact with one of his messengers, and he and she will share with us those spiritual practices that enable us to penetrate into the deepest recesses of our being and there make the discovery of the gift that God has planted in each and every one of us. But it always comes through another human being. So we looked at that, and we talked about the importance of learning how to deal with the conflict that naturally arises in our relationship with other people. Remember, we said that conflict is inevitable. There's never been a time in the history of mankind when people have not had conflict. Nor will there ever be a time in the history of mankind when people won't have conflict. Conflict is natural. Each of us bring into relationship a whole set of expectations, conditioning, etc., 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 and these things are bound to be incompatible at certain points, and it's going to result in conflict. The problem was not conflict. The problem was the emotional illiteracy that renders us incapable of resolving conflict. All right? Just as anger. The problem is not anger. The problem is the mismanagement of anger. So we looked at a lot of things. We talked about some of the other negative states of mind that will also reduce the quality of our life, that in many instances will prohibit the experience of any kind of authentic happiness in our life, which are the lack of management of lust, anger, greed, attachment, and vanity, egotism, this false basis for pride. So we looked at all of that. Some of you even did some homework, by golly, right? And got a little closer look at it. And for these last 10 sessions, I have been repeatedly telling you that the name of the game is homework. The name of the game is practice. The name of the game is what the Hindus call sadhana. You must do it. You can sit and listen to all of the philosophy in the world, but if you don't practice, you simply remain a philosopher. You see, it's like reading menus. You can read a menu all day long. It will do nothing to satiate your appetite at all. So similarly, it calls for the actual application of the things you have learned here. If over these past 10 weeks, all you got is some notes, and you have not gotten any homework, you've got nothing. You've simply wasted your time, and I probably have failed miserably. So the name of the game is practice. The name of the game is sadhana. You have to translate theory into practice. Knowledge is not power. The application of knowledge is power. You have to always enjoy the distinction between the two. So we talked about lots of things, and I guess if I tried to recap them, I'll stand here another 10 weeks, and we don't have 10 weeks. So let us recap over the things that you have found interesting and things that you feel you need a little bit more insight into. We hope to continue a series of additional workshops and seminars that will begin to look at some of the other ways in managing those negative states of mind that we've talked about. Lust, greed, attachment, and egotism, vanity, the false basis for pride. In fact, I think in October, I have to give something to Emma today. I was late because, as usual, I was sitting trying to figure out what we will cover. But it seems that at popular request, we will be doing attachment, and specifically attachment in our human relationships, managing this urge to cling to people and circumstances and things to make life remain the same, which is an attempt at the impossible, because life is in a continuous flow. And like the Taoist said, you got to flow with the Tao. If you don't, the Tao will drag you in any case, kicking and screaming. So we're going to look for the next 5 Saturdays in October somewhere. Emma will tell you all about it. At how to become first aware of our attachments and then how to manage those attachments. So that what? We can give ourselves some relief from all of this misery and suffering that we're going through. So, if I've scared you enough, then we can begin. So what would you like to go over? And we're just going to be very, very informal here. And I apologize to those of you who are coming here for the first time because we have said so much already and you may be a little lost. My apologies. My only recommendation is that maybe you afterwards can meet with someone who had the benefit of the whole session and hope that they will share with you some of the things we went over. I do know that Bilal has worked very hard to record most of this on video, so it should be in the library or available to you to go through at your own leisure. All right, who will be the first one? Who's the first brave soul? First of all, was there any homework? Did anybody do any homework? Was there any homework? Did anybody do something that is really going to transform themselves? Just as I suspected. No homework. All right, well, I have to keep beating you over the head. That's my function. Well, is there anything you would like to explore? Don't be shy. Yes, sister?
I've had a problem with my ego.
We all got a problem with that.
But the strange thing about it, I didn't realize it was actually, quote unquote, ego. When my husband in particular tell me some things that I have been doing incorrectly, I always take a defensive and justify why I did it and it was someone else's fault and all that. And I learned through session 2 that it was actually my ego mentality. So, can you just talk a little more about it?
Yes, very important. You remember, as I said, in this this family of negative states of mind, anger, lust, greed, attachment, and this egotism. I said that this egotism plays a role throughout the whole system. It's like a thread that runs through the whole thing. Remove egotism and all of these collapse. All of this is rooted in your ego. And remember, we define ego as the false image that we have formed of ourselves. Most of us have formed an image of ourselves that is based upon the opinions of other people, what our parents told us, what our brothers and sisters told us, so forth and so on. But we call mythology because it's like mythology. It is something you have invented. Okay? It's your own propaganda. It is made of the same stuff that dreams and fantasies are made out of. What the Hindus have called Maya. It is an illusion. It is your own perpetration of illusion upon yourself. It is the finest form of self-deception that a person can practice. Right? And we distinguish this kind of false egotism to the real self. The real self, that which you really are. It is interesting that, again, in the East, they have a term for it. In the East, these sages and mystics out of India and Asia and Africa have spent centuries, millennia, studying the anatomy of consciousness in great detail. So they have developed a lot of terminology that, quite frankly, don't exist in our culture. And one of the interesting words is swabhava. Swabhava means your inner nature. Swabhava is that which you were in your mother's womb. Your swabhava is that unique quality in you that God, the Creator, has itself placed in you. And remember, we talked about Dharma, and Dharma being the whole objective in Dharma is to discover and to manifest this swabhava. Right? Well, now, one of the biggest barriers to that is egotism. When you are riding off this ego mythology, you are under the false impression that you actually are the contents of your self-esteem. Remember, sister, we talked about the self-esteem and the contents thereof. You've been thinking you are honest, that you are kind, that you are loving, that you are compassionate, that you get along well with others, and that you'll go out of your way to help mankind, etc., etc., etc. And we discovered that your self-esteem is mostly just your estimation. It is seldom rooted in any reality whatsoever. And when you are thrown into real life situations, particularly marriage, then you discover that you have none of these things. You have no patience. And you've been thinking you had patience. So when an event occurs that requires patience, you fail. You've been thinking you have tolerance. But when life sends you a situation that requires tolerance, you fail. You've been thinking you are compassionate. But life sends you so many opportunities to be compassionate. And then you find out how hard and cold and insensitive and indifferent you really are to other forms of life and other people. So we begin to destroy the mythology that makes up most of our contents of our self-esteem. And particularly, sister, in the instance that you mentioned, when somebody criticizes us or points out some weakness in us, well, the first problem is that we thought we had no weaknesses, we had no flaws, that everything we do is right. We're omniscient, by golly. How can we do anything that is wrong? Surely you must be misunderstanding something. And so then our whole effort becomes to defend. And what are we trying to defend, Sister Florida? Our mythology, our illusion, the pretense, right? And this whole effort has to be dropped. It has to be dropped. Because as you're defending yourself, will money do that calm you down? No, makes them angrier. It escalates the conflicts in the relationship. Now you're insulting the person's intelligence, you see? You're saying you're wrong. And whenever you tell a person you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you got this wrong, this person starts feeling that you have contempt for them. You start making them feel small, you see? And that hurts, you see? That hurts. And again, it is our ego mythology that causes us to leap into this defensive posture every time. And the only solution to that, sister, is to become increasingly more and more aware of how our ego works. And remember, that is the only antidote that I teach, awareness. It is the cure-all for everything. One has to simply become aware. And like when spring comes, the grass grows by itself. Similarly, when awareness has become sufficient, all of this kind of stuff drops away on its own recourse. One has to put forth no effort whatsoever. It is natural. Enlightenment is a natural phenomenon. Spiritual attainment is a very natural thing. The only problem is that we have to go on removing the obstacles to it. You see? Spiritual growth is more of an act of subtraction than addition. It's not that you add anything, because you are already that. God Himself has already created you. But we have obscured our spirituality and our divinity by all of the baggage that we have. You see? I used to say it's like a light bulb, and over which you have so many coverings, 5, 6, 7 coverings. needs what they call calcius coverings over the soul, over the spirit. And just like with light, each successive cover retards the flow of light available. And we have so many covers over us that our light of spirituality don't even shine. Our capacity for spiritual light never ever breaks through into our outer life. The psychologists alone would tell you that most of us are only using 5-6% of our potential. 5 or 6% of your potential to be aware. It's mind-boggling. Imagine if you could increase your intensity and experience of happiness by 95%. How much different would your life be if you gained use over that dormant 95% of your capacity to be aware? It is an amazing thing. And so this egotism, sister, and its ego mythology that arises from it, is one of the greatest barriers, not only on the spiritual path, but as you can see, even in worldly life. So we have to work very hard on it. Much can be said about ego and how to manage it. Perhaps, Sister Florida, if you like, you can harass this law and make them schedule a workshop that will deal exclusively with managing egotism, you see, and the spiritual practices that these great mystics have left for us to deal with that. Yes, Satara?
First of all, I want to thank Sister Sadiq for bringing up egotism, because in doing homework, I discovered that on the contribution side was all ego. And it's just as though Kabir Sahib say, if you really want to find out the true nature of the person, don't go to the person and ask the person, because he or she will paint themselves up as deity. So therefore, go ask the wife, neighbor, friend, someone else. So I want to thank you for pointing out my ego, because again, in that particular exercise with the useless, with the contribution as opposed to the expectation, it brought everything out.
It was a very powerful exercise for you.
Very, very powerful.
Did anybody else get some tremendous insights into themselves? Yeah. Very powerful. We were talking about, if you recall, that you can be in this life in two different ways. You can be on the side of contributing, or you can be on the useless side of life. And on the useless side of life, your whole life will be miserable, because primarily all you're interested is what you can get. You are constantly in search of what I can get. It is centered around your ego, isn't it, sister? Right? It is full-blown ego out of control. And everybody in every situation that you come in contact with, the whole ambition is to somehow exploit. To exploit. You marry. And you don't marry to give nothing to the person that you marry. Your whole ambition is what I can get out of this marriage. You have your whole list hidden, tucked away, you see. And all that you have, I expect a house, I expect a car, I expect this, I expect that. And you go into these relationships with all these expectations. And these expectations are simply a map outlining the degree of your selfishness and your uselessness. There is no list of contributions. And when we live our life on the useless side, etc., we're bound to be miserable. Nobody wants to be around a person that is always out with their hands begging. Give me this, give me that, make me happy. You do this for me, you do that for me. You go, it's on and on and on and on. This person is useless. This person is absolutely useless. They make no contribution to humankind at all. They're parasitical. And etc., and many of us discover when we really sit down and look at ourselves closely. In fact, we have never even thought about what we are contributing to a relationship. The thought never occurred to us. Contribute something to a relationship? That is not how we've been conditioned. We've been conditioned to find someone who can give us all of this stuff on our list of expectations. That's how we all have been conditioned. And so, culturally, we are predisposed to be useless. And those things that we thought we was contributing, out of desperation and embarrassment, we quickly try to construct a list of contribution. And as Sarah said, when we find out on that contribution is all ego. It's all mythology. It's not even real. You don't even have the stuff. Oh, I'm going to contribute patience to the relationship. You don't have no patience. Oh, I'm going to be contributing understanding and love. Love, understanding, you don't have none of that stuff. That's your ego. It's mythology. It's myth. It's fantasy. It's made out of the same stuff that dreams are made out of. And then for the first time you discover, as Baba shared with us, that my God, I'm almost worthless to another human being. I've allowed myself to almost be just worthless. It's a tremendous experience. It's a tremendous revelation. You see. And then we begin the long and arduous task now of really trying to build something. So it's a very interesting exercise. I highly recommend that you do it continuously. Swamiji Maharaj, one of the great sages out of India, says that every day you should introspect and see to what extent you are on the contributing side of life and to what extent you're on the useless side. Don't think that throughout. One homework, curious. No. No. This mind of ours is so clever that even though it see it once, the next day it will immediately fall back into the same nonsense. You see? So we have to continuously examine ourselves. Socrates said that a life that is not examined to determine whether it is a contribution, whether it is worthwhile, a life that is not examined along these lines is a life that is not worth living. Period. Actually, technically, you are not alive. Kabir Sahib says, you are like the bellows of a blacksmith. It breathes, the bellows breathe, but it is dead. Similarly, when our life is on the useless side, we're not really alive. Our lives are characterized by just constant misery, suffering, frustration, disappointment, no sense of fulfillment. We're not happy. Ain't nothing going right in our life. Everything we touch is the reverse of the Midas touch. You see? And why? Because you are useless. You are contributing nothing. Happiness can only occur within the context of making a contribution. Please make a note of that. If you're serious about being happy in life, if you're really serious about that, if you're not playing philosophical games with yourself, then you're going to have to shift your thought, and you're going to have to really seriously start looking at how can I make a contribution to humankind. Very seriously. In fact, you got to discover what you even have to contribute. One of the problems, Sarah, is that most of us don't know our swabhava. We don't know our gift. We don't know that unique thing that we each have been endowed with. That is not duplicated in any other human being. That will never be repeated throughout the balance of time. That is a unique phenomenon, a unique occurrence with you. That you, in fact, are an incarnation of that thing. Each of us are an incarnation of one of the infinite characteristics of God. God has infinite characteristics. You see. And each of us is an incarnation of that particular characteristic. It is our gift that we have to give. It is God putting something in us to make available to the rest of humankind. And when you discover that thing, what we call when you are in Dhamma, when you are in what the African ancestors call ma'at, alignment, harmony, balance, etc. When you have discovered your swabhava, and then you have nurtured it and developed it so that it overflows into your life, then you become a great blessing. And remember, there is always somebody else in the world who stands in need of that particular gift. That's why the penalty is so severe, for the failure to develop it. The penalty for failure to develop this gift that God has given you is hell. Your life will be simply hell. You are already cast out to hell. And when you are developed, and when you have come in contact with this swabhava, and you have brought it out and given birth to it, then your life is like a paradise here on earth. You see the difference? So very often, Satara, the first task in constructing an authentic list of contribution requires that we know our swabhava. Yes, sir?
I got a question.
Yes.
When you gave that assignment originally,
a lot of people who did the homework, they were married, and they could interact in that. I wanted to know if you could qualify that a little bit for people who are single or people who are head of households, that type of thing. I can do something within my family, you know, and with my children, but for people who are, say, they're single and who don't have children, who are alone, how can they go about really getting something meaningful out of trying to do that assignment? How can they do that?
Yes, yes. Very difficult because unfortunately in this culture, so many, particularly women, are trapped in this kind of hellish life. You see, there is a kind of level of love that can only be experienced with another man.
Another person. Right.
You see, or another woman if you're a single man. It is different from what you can contribute to a child. Because to a child, the limitation of the child limits your contribution, obviously, because it's a child. They have different needs. They're in a different relationship. You see, the thing that I can only suggest that you do is what the mystic said. The Maharaji used to say, don't worry about being discovered. Worry about being fit and qualified when you are discovered. And so it's like that, you see. Worry about developing your swabhava. The rest will happen automatically, because remember, you are always continuously attracting that which you have in you. Now, if you have zero in you, if you have nothing to give to a man, you will not attract a man. Please make a note of that. This is no mystery. You have nothing to give a man. No man, therefore, is attracted. You have contracted yourself to a zero state of contribution on that level. No man is interested in you. For what? And so we have to come out of this contraction. And we have to bring that in us. And when that happens, not only one man, the whole world will rush to you. You see the difference? And what has caused us to contract? Because somewhere in our past we've been hurt. Somewhere in our past we have encountered reality. We have found out that our expectations were not met. Somewhere in your life you have been useless in a relationship. And you went into that relationship out of your uselessness with all of these expectations, and you discovered that none of the expectations get fulfilled by the other person. Essentially. And you become bitter, cynical, hateful. It is interesting that it seems to be the common philosophy of women who are trapped in that syndrome to subscribe to the notion that all men are dogs. Now, when this is your feeling that is coming out of you, you're not going to attract no man. You will attract dogs. Easy. And then you're wondering, why am I getting all these dog men? Because this is what you are attracting. It is your belief. It has become your philosophy. And that permeates your whole being. Even when a good man comes, you treat him like a dog. You're so locked into your own nonsense. You see. So we have to come out of this state of contraction, which means we have to recover from the failure of others in our past to meet these expectations, which means you got to get off the useless side, don't you? For most of us, our problem is that we started life, and most of us continue to live our life on the useless side. It has become a deep psychological and emotional pattern. It's a habit. It's hard. It is harder to break this habit of uselessness than it is drugs, alcohol. Any of the other addictions are easy in comparison. But for so long we have lived so uselessly that it's hard to snap out of that. That's why I said, Satra, we have to fight every day. And we will lose some days. Make no mistake about it. You see, there will be days we will drop back into this state of uselessness. Not to worry, not to fret, not to give up. We just regather our strength and we make the effort. But Emma, the problem is that as a single person, in search of a companionship, because you have these needs, obviously, then we have to begin to develop. It is very interesting. You have to start thinking of not so much receiving love. God, send me someone who loves me. The prayer has become, God, send me someone for me to pour all of my love on. It's a very different thing. You see? So when you now have been in your state of aloneness, and this is a good state, incidentally. If you're in that state, you are very fortunate. You are blessed. I envy you. Huh? Yes, it's a beautiful state because now you can erase, you can start over again. It's a gorgeous state to be in. So much knowledge, so much wisdom, so much experience. And you have learned how to deal with your aloneness. You see? And this is very difficult because most people stay in even bad relationships out of fear of stepping into this loneliness. They can't handle it. And then to stay in that pocket of loneliness. And after a while, it is difficult. I grant you that, very difficult. But after a while, you see, when you pass the first stage in the stage of loneliness is that you start having this craving. You want somebody to love you. You start missing other people. You start craving that. But it's still on the useless side. It is still based on fulfilling your needs, meeting your stuff. But after you pass the first stage, and this stage can take as much time as is necessary. For some people, that stage may last 1 year, 1 month, or 10 years, or 20 years, or a whole lifetime. It depends. But if you're lucky and you can move the stage 2, something else happens to you. Now you're ready to move out of your loneliness to give. Before, you was only ready to move out of your loneliness to receive. You were stepping out of your pocket of isolation to get you something. All right? But at stage 2, you step out of your pocket of loneliness to give. You have moved into a different dimension of your being. So not to worry, not to fret. Simply focus more on your swabhava. And remember, when that swabhava comes, it's like grass during the spring. The person will come. You need not do anything. Whether you fix your hair, Mirabai was the only woman in history that didn't even fix her hair at her wedding day. It wasn't necessary. She didn't put on no makeup, no wedding gown. She went through none of this because Mirabai was pretty. Mirabai had swabhava. And the king had to propose. You see? So not to worry about these things. Simply work on your gift and see what the Lord will give you. You will be absolutely amazed. Absolutely astounded. Yes, sister?
This may be a subject for another workshop.
Oh, God. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of other workshops.
But I wanted to know, what kinds of things can you do to work on your swabhava? To find your gift,
Yes.
your purpose?
Yes. The journey first begins, Sandra, by climbing and coming out of this ego mythology. The process that is spoke of in Vedas or in the sutras or in the scriptures of the world is very often a process called nete. It is a process of discovering who you are. That first has to be the first thing in play. There must arise in you an uncontrollable urge to know yourself. You must really want to know who you are. We spend so much time in our life learning about other people, other things, other events, but we don't know who we are. And if one does not know who oneself is, then fundamentally you are ignorant. Fundamentally. And how do you know when you don't know yourself? Because your life is not fulfilling. It is not satisfying. Because your actions is arising out of the ignorance of yourself. Your actions are following a false image that you have created of yourself that is not even connected with you. You are in fact absent from your own life. No wonder it is not satisfying. Hence the void. And everything that you're doing, you're trying to fill that void, but nothing is working. You're getting married, you see. You're having children, you're getting jobs, you're buying things, you're acquiring material things, but nothing is fulfilling that void because you are missing. So, Sandra, the first step then is that we have to become very, very serious about the discovery of who we are. We have to understand that life begins only when you know yourself. Up to then, you're not alive. And then once that process starts, then we have to go on unraveling the mystery of our being. And this is the process of mental. Because we've been thinking you are the body, but this body can't be me. It's my body. Anything that is mine cannot be me by definition. That which is mine cannot be me. I can use it, yes. It is mine, yes, but it's not me. Who I am must be deeper than the reality of this. And so through this process of neti, you go on eliminating that which is yours but which cannot be. Even these physical senses, you have to discover who is it that sees that which is seen with the eye. What is it that hears what is heard with the ears? What is it that feels what is felt through the body? What is it that tastes what is tasted through the tongue? What is that? That am I. Tat tuam asi, the old lady says. Thou art that. Find that. Begin to search for that. And just go on. Eliminate. And you will come to a point when you can eliminate nothing. That is what you are. And in that point, you discover this one. The work is arduous, I grant you. But there is no other way. Because you see something like nobody can tell you who you are. So what? How can they tell you who you are when they don't know who they are? It's not possible. You see. But you have to search. Go on searching. Go on searching. Go on searching. And it's been found by me. Why not? Yes, sister.
Can you get help from other people to find yourself?
I want to say yes and no to that. Because yes, in the sense that that's the whole function of satsang. For those of you who are not familiar, satsang simply means true association. Association for the purposes of discovering that truth. So when you are in the company of others who are in search of themselves, then yes, it is a great aid. It is a great encouragement. You get moral support to sustain you through this process. So part of me wants to say yes, that others can help you. In that sense, they can provide you with the moral courage and the support to sustain you through the search. But at a point, you see, this is not a group phenomenon. At some point, the journey becomes solitary, you see, where you have to move as an individual to find that discovery. I give you a clue. When you are in touch with your swabhava, because this is too important to just let it go so quickly. When you have made contact with your swabhava, and sometimes in life you still do it, you just don't know it, there will be some experiences that will go with that. Remember, Senra said the first experience will be one of timelessness. Did we talk about that here, or was it some other place? Baba, where was it? It's our song, not here. Okay, so I don't know. I know I must have discussed this somewhere. So those of you who were at the satsang, we talked about that. One of the first experiences that you have that characterizes contact with your swabhava is that you have the experience of timelessness. Time stop. Because your swabhava is not only the unique gift that God has given you, it is also the source of your bliss. It's a strange phenomenon. That gift that God has given each and every one of us, when we are in touch with it, it makes us absolutely blissful. It is the basis of your bliss. So when you are in alignment with your swabhava, you will note that you are very happy, full of joy, full of peace. You see. And you lose the experience of time. And you lose the experience of space. You don't know where you are no more. It's like lovers. When you remember when you were in love, Sandra, try to remember when you were in love, okay? And you remember there must have been those days holding your beloved hand, and perhaps on a day like today, along the lakefront, when all time would just stop. And you will be so enraptured in the moment of love. You see? That you don't know where you're at. Sex is the best illustration of this. That when you are at the peak of an orgasm, if you notice, you lose all experience of time. lose all experience of space. Even your ego drops. Notice. For a flash, for a moment. Because bliss wipes out ego. Bliss wipes out time. Bliss wipes out space. Even this physical bliss that we find in sex, it gives you a little bit of taste of the experience. That is why in African India, the mystics and sages develop a whole spiritual training called Tantra. Tantra. Tantra Yoga was based on the fact that the participants will first go into their sex, their wives, lovers, or whatever. Get very familiar with the experience of orgasm. Master it. In the act of sex, to be able to come to the peak of orgasm, but not to, go all the way, step over. You see. Just come very close, just get into that space and hang, and go on stretching your hang time. And what happened is that this feeling of orgasm fills the whole body. It is interesting. You see? The act is not even consummated. It just, you've moved yourself past the state of horny. Most of you stop, you go up to horny and you can't hang beyond that. But beyond horniness, right at the peak, the mystics found this is what you're aiming for. Get a taste of it. So that now you can identify what it feels like. Now go back to your meditation. It is to give the student a image, a model. It's like much with a painter. A painter has to have some kind of model, what you're aiming for. They have to have some kind of ideal of what it is that they are expected to reproduce on canvas. So these old African Indian mystics discovered this technique. You see. It belonged to a different time, of course. Us today, our lives are so out of whack that this will be a disastrous practice for us, and most of us will simply interpret it as a license to be promiscuous. So I'm not recommending Tantra Yoga. It belonged to a different age and time. But the point is that there were so many ways. So Sandra, try to find those things in your life. When you found yourself engaged in them, it gave you this experience of timelessness. Something that fills you with so much joy that, like sex, you forget all about time. You forget about where you are. You forget about eating. You forget about all of this stuff. You drop the mind. There's no mind at that point. Because I am not my mind. It is my mind. My mind. Therefore, it cannot be me. That which I am is even beyond the mind. Interesting. Haven't you noticed that even in the ordinary cycle of a day, as you travel through the 3 stages of so-called consciousness available to us, the wakeful state, the state beneath that, which is sleep with dreams, and then that deep dreamless state of sleep, what the mystics have called susupti. Isn't it very interesting that the I exists here? It is the same I that exists in your dreams. And it is the same I that exists in the state of no mind. You still exist. Try to find that experience here. It is a fantastic thing. Maybe we should, as you suggest, Samurai, do a workshop on that. I'm open, you see, to so many suggestions, because all these things are worthy of a much greater, look at. But surely there are things in your life that you have done that makes you feel absolutely blissful. Another way, another practical way. If you were rich, had all the money in the world, what would be that thing that you would do? The search for the answer to that begins to take you somewhere near your swabhava. Begins to put you a little bit in Dhamma. Because so much of what we do is predicated on the need to make a living and all of the things that goes with that. But what is it that you would do just out of the sheer enjoyment of it? with no other motives. No paycheck required, no recognition required, just pure joy, bliss. What is that? That will begin to lead you into the territory of your gift, where your gift lies. It will begin to move you into darkness. You see? And remember, that thing that you will discover there is something that God has put into you for the benefit of the rest of us. And to the extent that you don't develop it, you deprive us. You are cheating us of our heritage. The Lord has sent us something through you, express mail, for us. And you are refusing to share that with us. And that is a sin that cannot be forgiven. Because many of us are in such need of the gift that God has given you. It is wrong, it is immoral for you to not develop and give that to us. You have no right to keep it locked down in ignorance. You see my point? So we have a kind of a moral and social obligation to find that thing. Whatever it is that you discover in yourself, know that thousands of other people need it. And of course, remember that that which you need is in another human being as well. It works two ways. That's why I said to you, Emma, that you're searching for is in another human being. But that human being that can meet it, you have to be able to attract. So more can be said on that. Did that help you at all?
Yeah.
I spent so long talking about it, you see.
Oh, yeah.
Good. Yes, brother.
Yes, and in my homework previous weeks, I come across, we talked about this unconditional giving, unconditional love.
Yes, brother.
Is there a certain mental attitude, because I find it still difficult to do, it's still tied to my ego.
Yes.
Is there some kind of mental attitude that you must develop first?
Just practice. All you can do is practice. There's not going to be any secret to it. It's just practice. And remember, it's all right, because we have been conditioned out of this ego for so long. You know, that's not going to break because we attended a few workshops or read a few books. The only antidote is that we have to keep practicing. We have to keep practicing. We have to keep practicing. And you are right, because what Brother Sadiki has discovered, that whenever you have a legitimate thing on your list of contribution, it is always characterized by the fact that you will not expect anything in return. Please make a note of that. If you have anything on your side of contribution that you wish to give to another human being, but it comes attached with expectations, know for sure that it's not authentic. And Brother Siddiqui is saying, quite honestly, he speaks for all of us, it is very hard. Because when we examine very closely, we discover that, my God, I got some kind of secret, subtle, quiet expectation of attached to all of that. Yes, I'm going to make this contribution, but deep down inside, somewhere in me, there's an expectation that this is what I expect in return. And you're right, that is ego, you see. And it is difficult, you see. And all you can do is to catch yourself and drop that expectation. Drop it, you see. That's all you can do. And it's by this catching it, this awareness of it, it begins to drop. Just become more and more aware of when you have slipped back into that state, and let it go, and let it go. But time and time again, you see, the ego will rise. The ego will follow us very, very far along the spiritual path. Most people who come into spiritual practices don't realize that this ego will follow you very, very far along the journey. It stops just before you step into the final state of liberation. All the way up to the edge, the ego will follow. So very, very difficult. Anything else? If not, let us take our break and we will resume at 5 minutes to 2. And Bilal, let's turn on this air conditioning. It's getting hot up in here. Or is it just me? And we'll crack some. All right, we'll come back in 5 minutes. You, and please, I encourage you to not be shy. Even if you have not been here during the previous sessions and some question comes to mind or some area that you would want to throw out for discussion, you're most welcome to participate. In fact, I encourage you because it will give me an opportunity to test the retention of those who've gone before you. So please don't be shy. One of the things I want to remind each and every one in here is that the key to working successfully on oneself, the key to doing sadhana, the key to spiritual practice is the maintenance of your self-respect. You recall I said from the top of the workshops, I think in the very first workshop, Sandra, that the antidote to the effective management of all of these things, anger, lust, greed, attachment, and egotism, the whole key to finding one's swabhava, one's dharma, you see, indeed, the whole spiritual quest depends on your maintaining your self-respect in awareness. That's it. If you can find your self-respect and practice a little vipassana, a little awareness, then you will achieve all that a Buddha has achieved, not less. You will achieve what a Mahavira or a Krishna or a Muhammad or Jesus or a Lautus or a Zavasita or a Kabir or a Pataputta or any of these great mystics and saints. You will achieve exactly the same thing. Buddha was no different from you. The potential that was given to Buddha or to a Mahavira is the same opportunity and potential that is given to each and every one of us. The Lord is not discriminated. The only key to transforming yourself from where we are to where they are is the recapturing of your self-respect and the simple practice of awareness. Nothing else is required. You need go on no pilgrimage. You need not study a ton of books. You need not memorize any scriptures or anything of that nature. That is fine. It has its place, but it is not necessary. Self-respect and self-awareness is mandatory. And remember, at the house we have a very different definition of self-respect. Again, I want to remind you, self-respect is the experience of being worthwhile, not the notion that you're worthwhile, not the philosophy that you're worthwhile, not the intellectual conclusion that you're worthwhile. No, it is the actual felt experience of being worthwhile as a human being in spite of your imperfections, in spite of your shortcomings, and in spite of your faults. We all have them. We're just human beings, right? And the moment you start basing your worth on your perfectionism and your flawlessness, then you are in trouble. So please remember, you have worth and value as a human being independent of your shortcoming, your faults or imperfection, and that case is closed. You exist, therefore you have value. Case is closed. And you have to be straight on this. If you're not straight on anything else, if you get nothing else out of these workshops, you got to get this. You have to understand who you are. You've been told all your life you're not this, you're not that, and unless you get this and do that, unless you accomplish this and get a PhD, or you don't look right, you don't talk right. You've been told so many lies about what is necessary in order for you to be of worth and value. No one has told you who you are. No one has told you that you are a drop from that infinite ocean that we call God, and that you have been made in His image, in His image, in her image, whatever way you like to phrase it. You are that. Tat twamasi. Thou art that. You're made in that image. So all that is in God is in you, just on a mystical level. That's all. The difference is quantitative, not qualitative. You understand? And that makes you valuable. You exist, therefore you have value. And the moment you cease to have value, existence will wipe you out. Existence does not maintain anything that does not have value. And you got to be down, as the young folks say, with this. Okay? Self-respect is the hardest thing in the world to hold on to because you got so much ego mythology. You're so tied into this pseudo phenomenon called self-esteem. And you go on begging other people to say, do things to give you a sense of worth. You enslave yourself to the opinions and the doings of others. And why do you do that? We do that because we want them to make us feel worthwhile and valuable. Please, folks, never put your worth and value in the hands of another human being. Don't do that to yourself. Don't do that to yourself. Understand you have worth, value, simply by virtue of the fact that you exist, and that case is closed. We got imperfection, bet your last dollar. We got faults, tons of them. Shortcomings, who in this room is without them? But we have value in spite of that. And you almost have to practice that like a mantra. Sometimes people come and they say, oh, Bhagwan, I've been reading about the path and studying these saints, and I think I'm ready for, some kind of initiation. I'm ready to get onto the path. I'm ready to start developing myself spiritually. But if they don't have self-respect, you can't make no spiritual progress. Please make a note of that. Spiritual progress begins with the first step, which is recovering your self-respect. You see? So I want you to understand that. And all of this homework and all of this talking and all of these songs have only one purpose, is somehow to lure you, to trick you, to cajole you, to seduce you, to turn withinwards and discover who you are and the value of who you are. That it has no other function. It has no other purpose. And once you have retrieved your self-respect, in that instance, the Buddhahood occurs. So whatever happens after these workshops end, in the next workshop, in the workshops beyond that, the most important thing to hold on to is your self-respect. And that's hard to hold on to, because the world is going to tear you down. You see? Everybody you come across is going to find some flaw, some imperfection in you. It's okay. It's all right. If you got self-respect, that's all right. You see? They can find faults in you, because the reality, I do have faults. They can find your imperfection. They can point them out to you, Sister Florida. And you won't overreact. You won't go into this defensiveness. There's nothing to defend, because at no time is your worth in question. You will work on the imperfection. Thank you for pointing it out. The appropriate response is to thank the person. Not to vilify them, not to counterattack them. Yeah, I got these faults, but you got these faults, man. That's not the way to handle that. You see. It is to thank them, to be grateful, because perhaps they are pointing out something that you weren't aware of. You should be grateful. Kabir Sahib says that he who insults me is my friend. He who insults me is my friend. Why? Because they're pointing out my flaws, my shortcomings, those things that is blocking the full flow and manifestation of the inherent worth and divinity that I carry within my being. They are my friend. They're telling me the truth, you see. They have nothing to gain. They're not interested, you see. Those people who are often the ones who we spend the most time with, they're lying to you. And why are they lying to you? Because they're on the useless side of the relationship with you. They're exploiting you. They don't want to tell you the truth about your shortcoming, because they know you don't know how to handle it. And out of fit of rage and anger, you will abandon them, and they need you. This is what your children are doing. You said, oh, my children love me. No. The child is dependent. The child is smart. The child is a politician. They understand. Right? If I tell mama or I tell daddy the real deal, they're going to close that checkbook. And they're practical about it. Later on, you'll find out, because when they hit teenagerhood and they big enough, smart enough, tough enough, and especially when they get a job, they will bring to your attention all your shortcomings. And you're not going to be able to handle it. And you're going to be saying, oh, you changed. You're not my sweet little baby. No, he's always been like that. Just didn't have the opportunity and the courage to let mama and daddy know about it. So we have to look at all of these things. We have to look at all of these things. Awareness. You must study yourself. You must study yourself. There is no other way to get knowledge except through observation. If you want observation of yourself, you're not going to get it by reading a book. You think you're observing yourself by reading a book? You are analyzing the contents, commentary, interpretation, and the spin of the writer. That's all. Yes, you can get a little glimpse. You can be impressed. Oh, Mahavira knew himself. That should impress you, motivate you. When you read Quran and the Surahs, you should be impressed, motivated. Muhammad discovered himself. And he did discover himself not by reading the Quran. The Quran arose out of his self-discovery. Please understand this thing. His Holiness Jesus wrote no scriptures, nor caused any to be written, because they were not necessary. They became necessary later on when you try to organize mysticism, when you try to organize spirituality. Then you get religion. But when it is alive and thriving, none of these things are necessary. You see? And you cannot become a Jesus by reading the scriptures. I don't care how many scriptures you read and remember. That's not how it works. You see? Long before there was a Dhammadada, there was a Buddha. Buddha studied no Dhammadada. You have to understand, the key to this thing is that you have to study yourself. You are a book, and a marvelous book at that. The sum total of all knowledge exists in you. All of it. You carry, even at a biological level, the genetic material that contains the entire experience of humanity. It's in you. It's profound. Scientists now are discovering this genetic coding. The mystics have been telling us that for millennia. You are a microcosm of the macrocosm. Everything that is reflected in you. The difference is quantitative, not qualitative. You are holographic. You understand? A hologram of the divine. And everything that is in the divine is in you. And you can only know that, discover that, by studying yourself. So you have to practice. You have to do homework. You have to do this sadhana that we call it. You have to apply the truth. Truth's not going to set you free if you don't apply it. Yes, it's bitter. Yes. Why? Because of your ego. This thing, it don't want to work. And working is too dangerous. It's a threat, because when you work on yourself, you discover all the BS. First thing you will encounter is your BS, your propaganda, your mythology, your fantasy, the stuff that you have invented about yourself that has no root in reality whatsoever. And then that's too much, because you don't have any self-respect. That's all you got. It's this game that you've been playing. You see? It is like a death. Kabir Sahib says it's like a death. Traveling the path, it's like taking a sword and cutting your own head off. It is a kind of dying. St. Paul says you have to die so that Christ may live in you. You have to die. In fact, you are the problem. The world is not the problem. You are the problem. The way you are is the problem. If we are wrong, then everything that we do will be wrong. It has no option. If we are fundamentally ignorant of ourselves, everything we do will reflect that ignorance. And it will not lead to success and happiness. So you have to do this. And for what are you clinging to this ego for? It's not you, no way. It is nothing but a composite of the opinions of other people. That's all it is. For what are you clinging so tightly? You are willing to risk the opportunity of becoming all that you are, clinging to this nonsense? Something that some man, some woman done told you about yourself that was told to you simply to exploit you because they was on the useless side of their relationship with you. Oh, baby, you this and you all that, because they were aggrandizing themselves. And then you take all that nonsense and you cling to it. And when they ask you, how do you know that you got all these things? Well, so-and-so told me. But what do you know? So, awareness, self-observation, homework, practice, sadhana, call it whatever you like, is indispensable. So remember these two things. I had to repeat that again and again, and I will continuously repeat it again and again, because we never hear it enough. You see, the saints ask, why do you keep saying the same old stuff over and over again? They say because they're just hoping that maybe on the millionth time it gets through. It may take 1,000,000 times. The first step always is to hear the truth. You have to hear the truth. Second, you have to understand it. Because you heard it don't mean you understood it. Because you are now interpreting the words of a Jesus or a Buddha or a Mahavira or a Muhammad within the context of your experience. And you think you've understood Muhammad, or you think you've understood Jesus. You've not understood Jesus. You are simply regurgitating the commentary of your own mind. It takes a long time to understand that. It takes a long time to begin to get some insight into the teachings of a Buddha or a Jesus or a Muhammad. You think that's so easy? You'll have far greater chances of reading Einstein's special theory of relativity and coming away with some working understanding of particle physics than you would with reading the Bible and coming away with some understanding of what Jesus was talking about. Don't flatter yourself that you will possibly develop to the point you can understand Jesus. Ananda, one of the few writers, codifiers of the teachings of these great saints, leaves us an example in his compilation of the Dhamma. And for those of you who know the story, you know that Ananda was the elder brother of this Buddha. And because of some boons that this Buddha had granted to him, this Ananda had the opportunity of spending the entire 42 years of the Buddha's ministry with Buddha, day and night, and under every circumstance and situation. So, after Buddha went to Nirvana, as he calls it, it was Ananda's task to codify and record the teachings of the Buddha. So an assembly of all of the Bodhisattvas, all of the students and the disciples of Buddha who had attained enlightenment. Not those who had sit in satsang, not those who had simply took notes. Just a few, a Sariputta here, a Mahakachapa there, you see, convened. Because they had attained Buddhahood themselves, so they were the best qualified to expound on the teachings of the Buddha. And this shocked Ananda because Ananda had not attained any enlightenment. He took the Buddha for granted. No, this is my brother, I don't need to do any sadhana. I don't need to do any spiritual practice. This is my brother. Hey, he's going to hook me up. It don't work like that. You see, enlightenment is not dispensed based on blood relationships and friendships. You have to work. And Ananda was not permitted to enter into the great temple to codify the teachings of his brother in his Buddha. And naturally, this brother went home. You see? Out of their compassion, these Buddha Swamas allowed Ananda to write a few things They have come down to us in the form of these sutras. But when you read these sutras, you will notice that Ananda said, this is what I heard the Buddha say. I don't know if he said it. This is my mind interpreting what I think I heard the Buddha says. But you shouldn't be dependent upon that. Who knows? I can be wrong, because how can I understand a Buddha? With that qualification, then he offers us the sutra. So if nothing else, at least Ananda understood this thing. We have to understand the same thing. We have to understand what these Buddhas, what these Jesus, what these Mahaviras, Krishnas, so forth and so on, what they did. And I'm telling you, what they did was they discovered who they were. Nothing else is required, because in that process of self-discovery is the process of God realization. There is no distinction between the two. So, remember this always. Now, with preaching over with, let us return to the subject at hand, which is anger, and any aspect of anger that we've dealt with or have not dealt with. Because remember, I left out a lot of things. We did not talk about negative excitement. We did not talk about the type of child you were. There was all kinds of childhood roles that we begin to form as kids. Some of us became the pampered child. Some of us was the prince or the princess. Some of us was the understanding child. Some of us was the abandoned child. So even in our childhood, there was a lot of things that went on that goes to forming our strategies and lifestyle for dealing with the problems and the conflict of adult relationships and things of that nature. We didn't look at that. We didn't talk about negative excitement as a solution to your boredom and your loneliness, you see? And so there was a lot of things we did not cover, and some of you might have been intuitive enough to understand that there was still many things that we left out of the workshop. I confess, you're right. There were many things we left out, because we could not travel the whole path in such a short time. So again, for the next few minutes, let's open this up and to your questions and comments and any other area. And Bilal, I would ask if you would turn on the air conditioner. I think we're going to be all right from here, so that people are comfortable. This stuff is boring enough. We should not add any further punishment by depriving them of air conditioning. So, let us return. Yes, brother.
Yes, Bhagwan. Would you say a few words on my good intentions that I have for people?
Oh, did you look at your good intentions, brother? You remember one of the homeworks that we asked throughout one of the workshops were you to make a list of two things, right? The discovery of the good intention that other people have for you and the good intention you have for other people. And if you've done that exercise, you will see a lot of interesting things. And remember, we define good intentions as basically being your disguising your own selfish ambition and goals in the disguise of an act that is in the behalf of another human being, right? I hide and secret my own selfish ambitions, and then I try to be a victim and say that I want you to do all this stuff for your benefit, but in reality it is for my benefit. We talked about in the parenting section how as parents, almost every one of us is guilty of that option. We tell our children that, baby, I want you to go to school, and I want you to become a doctor, and I want you to live a good life, make a lot of money, because I don't want you to suffer and struggle. But that translated as, baby, I want you to go and be able to make $500,000 so I can live with you in my old age. And I don't have to go on one of these old folks' homes. So it is disguising your good intention as an act that is in the behalf of another person. That person is just your victim. And we've discovered that very often that victim sooner or later is going to discover, and they're going to rebel, because they're not going to allow you to co-opt their life. They catch on to you at some point in time. And then the experience of your good intention collapses into an experience of having been good for nothing. You did all of that, paid all that money for their tuition, bought all them school supplies, drove that beat-up, raggedy car for 10 years, struggling. Notice that in a good intention, you will always have the experience of sacrificing. And that is what characterizes a good intention. It feels like you sacrificing. And when you find yourself in that mode, know that you are perpetrating a crime against another human being. Because, as Sandra pointed out earlier, and as Sadiki reminded us, when you're really contributing, there is no feeling of sacrifice at all. What are you? There's nothing, because you have no expectation. There is no sacrifice. Contribution occurs completely absent of the feeling of sacrificing anything. Because you are moving out of abundance. You have so much to give that you don't even miss this little stuff. It ain't no sacrifice. It is your joy. It is your pleasure. Actually, you're beholden to the other person for allowing you an opportunity to pour your excess into their lives. You feel very grateful to that person for receiving it. You see, quite the opposite of what you experienced in a good intention. So we looked at, Sadiki, as you said, at our good intentions. And we should examine, what is our good intention for our children? If you are a parent, you better know that. Because if you don't, you're going to mess that child up. Do you know that society is not messing up your children? You are messing them up. When I do a parent workshop, the parents are all the time, they say, the television did this to my child, and the newspaper did this. You see, they're innocent. And I'm telling them that the destruction that is done to these human beings is done and almost complete by the time that kid is 7 years old. You talking about something that just happened yesterday. The kid is 19. That has nothing to do with it. What did you do to the kid before they became 7? They couldn't even read. So couldn't have been the press. They were not even interested in news. They didn't watch it. What did you do? You had some good intentions. That's one of your parenting styles, and you messed this kid up. Remember we talked about those negative, dysfunctional styles of parenting. Did we talk about it here? I don't know where we talked about it. We did talk about it here. Overprotective, overambitious, overindulgence, and overcritical. These 4 major forms. Those are all good intentions, right? I'm criticizing my child because I want them to excel. Again, that's a good intention that masquerades my own selfish ambition, right? I want you to be the best in your class because I wasn't the best in my class, right? So I'll live vicariously through your attainment. At least I can say, oh, my son, my daughter graduated cum laude from Harvard. Now, I didn't finish high school, you see? I got all else, but it gives me bragging rights. You understand? It's an ego trip somewhere. Disguise, that's all. And these good intentions, Sadiki, we discover, are always self-defeating. Right? Always self-defeating. They are counterproductive. You get exactly the opposite of what you intended out of any good intention, right? And they are destructive. They destroy relationships. Right? And so we have good intentions. We have good intentions for our wives, for our husbands, for our friends, right? So forth and so on. There's hardly a human being we come in contact with that we don't have a good intention. Right? The ideal is to replace these good intentions with real intentions. What are real intentions? It is, again, it is not to incorporate your own selfish ambition, goals, and desires into actions that are being prescribed for other people's benefit and then duping them into believing that. To have a real intention is to do whatever you really need to do to fulfill your own ambitions and goals, right? If you are trying to co-opt the life of your child so that they can be a doctor because you couldn't make it, you go to medical school and release this child from this nonsense, right? Get a real intention for yourself. A real intention for yourself are the things you do directly to achieve whatever it is that you are trying to load off onto the innocent victim. You see? That's a real intention, you see, as opposed to a good intention. And with the child, or with the wife, or with the husband, or with the friend, move out of your useless relationship with that person into a period of contribution, into a state of contribution. You see what the point? It's a very different thing. And when you make that move, you will have absolutely no sense of sacrifice. How many of us feel like we're sacrificing every day for our family? Tell the truth. We all do. Oh, I'm making so many sacrifices for my children. Oh, I'm making so many sacrifices for my husband or my wife. Nonsense. you are perpetrating fraud. You're full of good intentions. And the net result is that you're just miserable because they all are disappointing you. In secrecy, you come and you say, oh, Bhagwan, I'm so disappointed in my wife. She's not this. Or, oh, my husband has failed me like this. Oh, my children. Where from all this disappointment? Because you loaded with all these expectations. And what are these expectations are disguised in your so-called good intentions. And good intentions are always counterproductive. You're bound to be upset and frustrated and dissatisfied. Drop this nonsense, you see, and replace it with good intentions, you see. These children are individuals passing through our lives. Be a good host. If you want to help your child, or you want to help your wife, or you want to help your friend, then find your swabhava, find your dharma, and then help them find their dharma. No one is concerned about whether this girl be a PhD or non-PhD. What is my daughter's dharma? Care whether you pass, whether you don't pass, I'm not interested in that. I'm concerned. Find your dharma. You see? And if it takes you all of your life, fine. You can live here with me. I'll feed you. I'll clothe you. No problem. What I'm most interested in is you finding your dharma. Be in a relationship with people on the contribution side. If you can help another human being, then help them find their dharma. But you can't be of any help to a person to find their dharma. That's what problem if you don't know yours. So again, we come back to you. Everything starts with you. And now, Sadiki, when we talk about others' good intention for us, how do we feel it? We always feel it in the form that they are imposing upon us. They're taking away our control of ourselves. You see, they make us feel powerless. They fill us with guilt and all these other things. Know then that you're a victim of that other person's good intentions. That's all. And you have to disengage from that kind of a mischief. Thank them for their good advice. Oh, thank you very much. I know you're worried about me. Oh, thank you very much. But I think I'm going to be all right. But I appreciate your advice. You see? Your attempts. You see? But you will feel it in yourself. And these good intentions, you will feel it in 4 basic forms. You will know when you are a victim of another person's good intention because, as I pointed out already, one, you will have the feeling of being powerless and out of control of your own life. You actually feel that. You'll feel it. You'll feel it. Not think you'll feel it. It's existential. You'll feel it. The second thing that you will note is that it will be very annoying. You know, that's a form of anger. It'll make you angry. It'll be very irritating. When you are a victim of another person's good intention, you see, one of the feelings that can go, depending on the category of good intention. And I don't even know, you will forgive me, I do this stuff so much, I don't know who I'll be talking to. I just know somewhere I must have discussed this. But you will feel it, because it will irritate you. The third area is that it'll make you feel hopeless. You see? Hopeless. When you're a victim of another person's good intention, it'll create in you a sense of hopelessness. You'll feel like giving up. You see? You give up. Or it will simply hurt you. You see? It will hurt you. So all of these things are things that you will feel. Contrast when a person is in a relationship with you on a level of contribution. You see, you will feel nothing but freedom in your presence. They will give you a tremendous sense of freedom and liberation. You see? Tremendous, and it's a felt experience. Because they're not perpetrating no good intention upon you, right? And from annoyed and made angry, they will make you absolutely the opposite. You know, they create a kind of peacefulness, you see? And so forth and so on, you see? Hopelessness is replaced with hope, optimism, and all these other things. Hurt, no, they'll make you feel love. You'll feel loved. You'll feel valuable. You'll feel like you have worth and significant. You will feel this when you're not under the attack of a person's good intentions. Much more can be said, but we begin to understand that we have good intentions for others, and others have good intentions for us. And very often in our personal adult relationship, most of that conflict comes between a conflict of good intentions. You see? The husband saying that I'm telling you this, honey, for your benefit, and the wife saying I'm telling you that for your benefit, and somewhere in the process they start shooting at each other. Have you ever noticed? Right? Because none of it is real. None of it is real. And when that conflict between people in relationships become too much, and the knowledge of how to resolve it too little, the only option is divorce. Divorce fundamentally arises because two people don't know how to manage their anger and all these other things. They don't know how to do it. They are emotionally illiterate. All of us are, usually, confronted with those realities in life that point out the fact that we are emotionally illiterate. Does that make us worthless? No. Remember, I've already told you, your worth and value as a human being is rock solidly established. So we're not talking about any loss in your worth and value. Please remain clear on this. What I'm simply saying is that we are just emotionally illiterate. We don't know how to do this stuff. Nobody has taught to us about it. Nobody has showed us. So you can learn. But when you don't know, you see, then life becomes miserable. Right? Exchange relationship with our children, things of that nature, again, don't know how to handle the conflict. So now we become estranged and needlessly so. So much more needs to be said about good intention beyond the scope of what we discussed earlier in one of the workshops. But Siddiqui, what other insights did you have? I'm more interested in seeing what did you discover when you did that exercise as it relates to your good intention. What were some of the good intentions, or is it safe for you to speak on that? I noticed that Florida has marked certain spots in the joint journal you all keep, so you might want to refer to your notes.
I can only think of some examples.
Okay, give us an example.
We were like in a transition of monitoring our diet and things, nutrition. We're looking at that. And I was always like, you're not cooking right, and this and that, And my good intentions are to help you master this.
That's right.
But in reality, I found out that I wanted what I wanted to eat and this kind of thing. So I kind of come to the realization that I might have to get in there and learn how to mix up.
You have to learn how to cook yourself.
Yeah.
Replace that good intention with a real intention. That's a good homework. And after you came to that realization and accepted the responsibility, did you have a sense of relief from the pressure of this life? Huh?
Yeah, it released me from some of the anger that I had.
The anger kind of
when
went
it put it
down.
on, made me move.
Made you? Or did you have a sense that you did something that was mature?
Yes.
It was very mature. And so, as we discussed in many other workshops, there's a whole set of feelings that accompany it. Right? So that's good. Anybody else have an example from their homework and good intention that they would like to share? Or was Sadiq the only one that did that homework? Or if you're doing some homework now, you're most welcome to share that. If not, we're going to move right along because, again, time is the essence, and I want to make available to those who wanted a certificate. I remember that some of you asked specifically at the beginning of the workshop that I prepare some certification or some kind of certificate for you. And I've done that today, and I wanted to disperse them. I'm anxious to get to that part. So, Emma, in fact, while we're doing that, can you look in my office and bring me those folders and there's some flowers and things there too. And so those of you who requested, and if I have overlooked anyone, because I don't know how complete my list was, then you should please see me and I'll also see to it that I can produce a certificate for you. Some of you need it for recertification process if you're a therapist or whatever. It carries 45 units, CEUs, category 2, so that should take care of you for the next 2 years for licensing purposes. Anything else that we can talk on while Emma is off running this errand? Don't be shy, we're on your eye. Huh?
I do want to open my mouth.
Open that mouth. After all, you're the sister of Seth Ride. You'll be breaking a family tradition if you didn't open your mouth.
I'm not sure how to even put it, because I haven't been attending the workshop, so
Yes.
this is a first for me just looking at it. And based on the sport that you named, I was telling Andrew that I know for a fact that I make him feel that way because my whole concept is about trying to get a house. and you know, and the money isn't really there, and I nag him to death about, you know, when we're going to get in, and the money isn't being managed right, you know, management of the money.
Typical stuff, right?
And I know I get on his nerves with it, and sometimes we don't even speak to each other because of
That's
situation.
Andrew can answer this question. Go ahead and give your wife some therapy here.
Well, I walk around mad about it, you know, and I just assume that he's mad too, but I don't know. I don't know, but I know I do nag him a lot about this house thing, you know, we're gonna do it, and the money isn't being managed right, and we should have this, and you know, the whole ball game that go with it. So I don't know. I was asking Andrew if he wanted to say something. We was trying to like talk.
He's going to say much on the car on the way home. Not now. But just wait till you get to that car. But you see, sister, that's a very honest statement. Is that you're acknowledging the useless side that you're on in terms of the relationship. You want some stuff from this man. That's why you got married. Little be known to him when you all were standing before the altar that you had this long list in your purse, and on that list there was a house with 6 months, right? You know, the number of kids on this whole list. And you've been waiting patiently for how long now? How many years?
22 years.
22 years. And you waited for this list to get filled. And it looked like, oh my God, I'm running out of time.
We are running out
That's
of time.
right.
We get a 30-year mortgage, we'll be dead.
You'll be dead. So this is the big
That's
deal
all
to
purpose
you.
about a mortgage. If you pay it off, get another loan on it. You don't pay off no house.
He has a different philosophy on these matters. But the point is that if, the anger is arising because of his failure to live up to your expectations. But as your brother pointed out, that go down this list of expectations and look at them very, very closely. Begin to eliminate that stuff that is clearly a reflection of your useless side in the relationship.
Well, I call myself suppressing these feelings.
Don't suppress them. You got to manage it. Suppressing is dangerous because eventually suppressed anger over time always equals rage. That's the formula to understand. And when you try to suppress it, you're just making yourself more miserable because the reality is there, you see. And so we get attached to these things. When we do the workshop on attachment, I'm going to talk in some detail about the relationship of attachment to this list because we get attached to our stuff. And we cling to these expectations. We can't let it go. Now, the reality is that life changes. Life is in a flux, continuously in a flux. So you can't cling to these things all the time. You have to loosen up, you see. And again, what is it underlying that motive, you see? Are you feeling less worth as a human being because you don't have a house? That goes to speak to the absence of a sufficient amount of self-respect. I've already told you you have worth if you live in a cardboard box. So it's not going to make you more worth. Wow, you see. And
But I just want it, though.
yes, but a want is not a need. Please enjoy the distinction between the two. You are perceiving a simple desire and expectation like it's a need. Don't you feel like how you're going to die if you don't get this house? Now that's nonsense. You're not going to die if you don't get a house, but it feels like you're going to die if you don't get a house. Because you have misperceived a desire and an expectation as a need. A need is something real. If you don't get it, you will die. Desires and expectations are unreal. They are illusions. They are Maya. They are made of the stuff that dreams and fantasies are made out of. But when we misperceive our expectations and desire as needs, then we're in trouble. You see. And hence the nagging, because nagging is a form of anger. It's a very popular one with women. Please make a note, most women manage their anger at their husband by nagging the man. You see, it gives them some temporary relief from the agony and anguish of their suppressed anger. Nothing wrong with that. Please don't misunderstand me. The very fact that you can speak about it is a great testimony to a turning point in your life. You see? So, not to worry. You see, some other things can be said, but it should be said in private. You see, because it'll have no value to the rest of you. But you make some arrangements. We'll talk about it. Well, with that, I think we'll move right along to the ceremonial part. Actually, the part I've been waiting for, because it marks the culmination of 10 hard, long, back-breaking weeks, right? Of running over here from jobs and homes and all these other things, putting up with what had to have been, at many times, very boring conversations, and all of that for a piece of paper. But I am most happy to distribute these to each and every person involved, simply because they are a reflection of dedication, a reflection of their commitment to themselves, to plumb the depths of their being and come away with the skills and the insights that will improve the quality of their lives, as well as the quality of the lives of all of us who come in contact with them. So indeed, I am most grateful to each and every one of you. So with dispensing with a lot of formality, I want to pass out these certificates and ask each one as you come forward, if you would just say one or two things, or maybe one thing that you would like to leave with the rest of the people, and then you could have a seat. Bilal don't have much tape now. And I don't have these in any particular order, but Dorothy, you seem to pop up first. I wasn't putting you on the spot. Let's get her. This is to Dorothy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Please say something.
Well, I didn't know how much anger I had built up in me from childhood and I guess up until now. And it really did help me, put me in touch with that, because you went over the session about the older child and the second child, and I started off being the second child and I ended up being the oldest child, and I had to make all these decisions for everybody else, and I had a lot of resentment and anger toward my family. So it helped me to deal with that better.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. And unfortunately, when I ran out, the store didn't have all the roses I wanted, so you all will forgive me if I run out of roses, but I don't run out of love. Sandra, please.
I think what I got out of the workshop mostly was the issue of self-respect, because I found it very hard to love myself when there were so many things I felt I had failed at, or in spite of my shortcomings, I had to realize that I still had self-worth.
This goes to a person who has been like a guru to me for so many years, who has pointed out all of my imperfections and shortcomings. And whatever little humanity I have as a human being, I owe it to her, my sister, Emma.
The workshop here is like an extension of my life. My whole life has been a learning experience from my older brothers. as I had told a group before, outside of your presence, I used to listen to you debate things every night when I went to sleep. You know, you and Bilal always had some kind of hot conversation going on. So this is an ongoing experience for me, and it's still a part of my self-discovery. And I appreciate it.
A sister that we have all come to know and love, Kiva Ba Israel.
I think the most significant thing for me, in addition to meeting all of you and getting that kindred spirit and love with some more brothers and sisters that are really trying to work on themselves, is that I discovered that a lot of my anger was due to the fact that I took a lot of things personally. So that is my goal, to really, really work on that. And I'm tested all the time. You know, you go to a certain plateau and you think, oh, I got this under control. And then lo and behold, something happens and you come tumbling down again. So I've really, really enjoyed being in your presence. And it's not enough that I can say about this brother. You've known him longer than I have. But we should thank the Creator every day.
The moment that Barani Ra has been waiting for, Set Ra. Actually, Set Ra is the only one in here who is qualified, being a therapist, to speak on these things, that I've had the arrogance to speak 10 weeks. Flowers too.
It'd be an honor to. No, but what I truly would like to say is that the joys and pains of life, in terms of realizing that you don't know everything and you're far, far away from home with a lot of things in which that you thought you have understood, but yet you have not even made a dent in it. I learned so much in the workshop, and there's not enough film on that camera to let you know. But one of the discoveries in which that I learned most of all is that this ego, I don't know how to get rid of the damn thing. And the truth of the matter is that I need you guys to let me know. I see something in all of y'all in which that I want and I need. It's just to let me know. You know, when I say something to do something, please let me know. And again, I won't waste any time, but Guru Sahib.
What is this, huh? He's having more trouble with his ego. Aliyah.
Oh,
The name is the sweet of the name of Buddha.
Thank you very much. This workshop has really helped me. I've met some wonderful people. I've also learned that I have more anger than I really realized. I was one of the people that used the euphemism of annoyance and slight irritations and a little patience. But I've grown a lot. With Brother Bhagwan and grown. Thank you very much. I also want to thank my parents from here today. My dad is here. That's my father, Abraham Bolden, and his wife, my mother, Aisha. Both attending.
Give them a good hand, you got a fine job. No evidence of good intention.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, Bhagwan.
You're very welcome, sister.
We just surprised.
Okay. Two people who have become for us a model of all of that we're trying to achieve in terms of what it means to be in love and to be married and to be in a state of commitment. Bamina and Florida. There's no way to separate you two.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. They debated which was speak first.
this workshop has been a real experience and shocking at the same time. But we learned through hardship sometimes, speaking for myself. But we've come a long way. We believe we're on the right path. It's a path that we believe we're going to continue on. And we thank Bhagwan and the class also because we've learned so much from you all. Thank you very much.
As we get toward the end, notice that we will start getting these real profound people. Meaning the wave will be heaven.
This has been such an experience for me, and I've gotten, I think, 3 most important things from this class. And one is the importance of sadhana. I have learned that in order to make something of yourself, to really learn who you are, your dharma, find out your dharma, you have to be aware of yourself at every waking hour. The other is vipassana. You've got to be aware of yourself. I didn't really know before coming to this class really how I manifested anger. But the definition, which is a mouthful that Bhagwan has given to us, I'm going to try and say it, I might botch it up, but it's your response to your perception of an attack on your person. And when Bhagwan gave me that definition, it just opened up everything, because we deal with situations every day, events come into our life, and it's really how we perceive it. And if we are able to look beyond our personal perceptions of them, then we're able to get an understanding of why we react the way we do. So I really have gotten a lot out of this class, and I know now how to, I mean, he has given us the tools. We know, I mean, you can leave here and know what to do to work on your life. And I'm just so grateful for having met Bhagwan, because I know that he is truly a holy man. Amen. And he manifests that in every way. And it's a dream come true. I've been on this path for a long time. And I guess it's really true what they say, that when the student is ready, the teacher will come.
Of course, last but not least, but I could save him for last, because again, I have had the great fortune of being born into a family of people who always had more knowledge than me. And even though they think they were listening to me, what they were really hearing was me mimicking their own life, their own attainments. I was just cursed with the gift to be a good imitator, and I've had excellent people in my personal life, in my family, whom I could imitate. And certainly one of them is one of my younger brother. And since his wife could not be here today, for which he would be in much trouble, Wade Rajni Shingu. So he will say 2 things, one for himself, one for his wife. He speaks for all the time.
Okay, first thing I want to do is acknowledge Brother Abraham Boland, one of my law enforcement brothers. He's the first black civil service agent, Secret Service agent. He served on President John F. Kennedy presidential bodyguard detail. Second of all, I want to acknowledge my sister for keeping me on the useless side for these last 10 weeks. I haven't ate this consistently since I got married. And, she's been cooking for us every Saturday for the last 10 weeks. Well, the thing that I got out of this class more so than anything else, and I've been studying this with my brothers for the last 20 years, and it seems like each day as I get older, I learn a little bit more. But But the thing that has helped me the most is to be able to take these things out in the field. As my brother calls me, Lieutenant, as you all know, I'm a police officer. I've been a police officer out there for the last 15, 16 years. And as a police officer, we're out there on the front lines, and we see the things that people take for granted. I was looking at these little boys on my way up here. Just the other day, we had a kid pent under a car. See, we take these things for granted. Kids ran over by trains, knocking on those doors, shining those lights in the windows late at night, telling you that one of your loved ones had died. And the thing, I've been able to help my guys out there, help my guys when we're dealing with tragedies and things like this. And I've taken a lot of my notes and a lot of my experiences and insight and shared them with the guys on the police department. So that's the thing, the most immediate gratification that I've got, that I've been able to go out into the vineyard and use this with my fellow police officers because they're on the front line. And we got a lot of alcoholics and drug addicts on the police department as a result of the nature of our work. And this workshop has helped me in that sense. And that's what I want to say.
I have, like Buddha, a flower. I have no certificate. One reason I don't recall the next young lady asking for one, nor do I think she needs one to speak to her understanding that she has brought to our little gathering. Tony, please.
God, I'm honored. Thank you. When I came to this class, it was Avia told me she had saw Bhagwan on TV. So we came as a spiritual awakening. And the thing that stands most in my mind is that how can I share love or knowledge if I haven't found myself? So by coming here, I have found, and I pray daily that I don't want to live a long time and don't give nothing back, because that would be a useless life. So by coming to this workshop, and the anger, when I first read about the anger workshop, it was like, we don't get mad, we don't have to go there. And coming to that workshop was like the opening of a blocked room, a dark room, and we found so much about ourselves, and sharing that knowledge and sharing the experience of all the people here, because as I was sharing with the young ladies that just came in, that one good thing about this workshop, you don't have to feel like, I can't say that because they won't understand, but everybody here is reaching for the same thing. And so it's easy to share, it's easy to grow, because we all are looking to gain that one thing. And Brother Bhagwan and Bala and Emma, I mean, everybody here has and what's so good is that it's such a strong relationship that I have spiritually with everybody here, because everybody gives something, you know, and that's my prayer. And it's like my prayer has been answered, and all I have to do is to be the best that I can be, because as I wrote to Brother Bhagwan, that I wrote him a letter and some of that, freedom was the one thing I had been looking for, because if I'm not free, how can I share freedom with somebody else? So my desire is the things he shared with us, that I might one day be able to share with someone else. And I thank you.
I thank each and every one of you for your kind remarks and the re-sharing with us of your insights. I don't think we could end this series of workshops without first all of us collectively acknowledging the one person in the room who has really put this together, who is quiet, that has been his way forever, you see. But you should not mistake his silence for his absence. The whole house of throbs and reverberates with his presence. The true master of the house, let us all thank my brother Bhagwan. So we come to the end of these 10 weeks. I hope that as Tony said, that you will take your light out into the world, shine it. The Lord has been so kind as to bestow a little gift of knowledge on us. It could only be because He wishes us to share it with the next person. Otherwise, again, we are simply useless, I think. So to the extent that you share this information, to that extent you will be making a contribution that is no less great than the contribution that Lieutenant mentioned that he makes every day that he goes to work. You can do the same. What more? Can even do greater. Emma, you want to say something about the next workshop? Emma has all the brains, you all know that.
I have some flyers now that I can
Would you
share
read
with the
it?
people.
All right, and you can just read it so that they'll know what it is, or you just want to share it later? You don't need the camera.
Well, I was just going to say that I have some flyers in regards to the next workshop and that I could pass them out. The workshop is going to start in mid to late October, and once you get your handout, you can discuss it with a friend just in case anybody wants to bring someone in and share them. But I will give them out after class is over today.
I think that's it, folks. Is there any food left? No food? All right. Thank you all for coming. See you next time.
All right.